What's up, everybody? Chris Pinnell here. We're going over my starts of the week at each position for week 9 of the fantasy football season. If you enjoy, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's dive right into it. And my start of the week at the quarterback position is going to be Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I have caught some flack for it this week. People are saying I'm too high on him in the rankings, or what has he done this year for you to be so excited about Dak Prescott this week? And it's not that I'm extremely excited about Dak. It's more of the fact that quarterback position is a bit weak this weekend because we do have some bye weeks that are going to take away a couple of the guys that we do start week in, week out, like Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, and Brock Purdy has been startable this season as well. And this is a great matchup versus the Philadelphia Eagles. They are a pass-funnel defense. They are getting shredded through the air this season, but they are lockdown elite versus the run, allowing less than 50 rushing yards per game to running backs. Currently allowing the 5th most points per game to the position, 270 passing yards per game, 2 passing touchdowns, 20.7 points to quarterbacks. And Sam Howell just had an explosion game versus this defense last week. And I do trust the Cowboys offense more than I trust the Commanders. I'm not saying he's going to come out here and get 40 fantasy points. I currently have him projected for 18.42, which is honestly a very solid day at quarterback if you are not someone that has elite level option like a Patrick Mahomes to Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow that you can start week in, week out. And while Dak hasn't been great this year, 230 passing yards per game, less than 1.5 passing touchdowns, still at 7.4 yards per attempt. The QBR is actually looking pretty good at 97.8, completing over 70% of his passes. Not a ton of rushing upside, 14 yards per game, but I do like what we've seen the previous 2 weeks with Dak, as he had 25 points versus the Chargers and 32 points versus the Los Angeles Rams. 2+ matchups, and we get another plus matchup here. And assuming we don't see another blowout, which we've actually seen with the Cowboys several times this year, which I do think is affecting his scoring a bit, but I think Dak Prescott can get to 15+ points this week with upside of more. And moving on to running backs, I just want to give a quick mention to Colts running backs owners, whether it's Zach Moss or Jonathan Taylor. Start them versus the Panthers. It's such a good matchup, and I realize it's a bit of a split backfield, but we've seen Taylor's snaps increase every single week since returning. Probably going to be more of a 60-40 split in this backfield, but both guys look pretty good back there, and this matchup is dreamy. But moving on to the actual start of the week, because that's pretty obvious, we have Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals, and he draws himself a very good matchup versus the Buffalo Bills at home on Sunday Night Football. 25.5 implied team total for the Cincinnati Bengals here. They're playing at home, 2.5-point favorites, and the Bills are currently 24th versus running backs, allowing 100 yards per game on the ground and 43 yards through the air to running backs as well. And Mixon on the season, seeing 16 carries per game, 3.5 targets, which equates to just under a 10% target share. He's also coming off his best game of the season, over 20 fantasy points and at 5.4 yards per carry in that one. And we know Mixon's a pretty inefficient running back. That did bring his season total up to 4 now, so we finally broke the 3 mark. So the efficiency, not quite there, but when you're a running back getting the bulk of the work and seeing close to around 20 total opportunities every single week, with a really high implied team total and a good matchup, yeah, that's going to make you pretty relevant at the running back position. The next RB I love this week is Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers. We just got news that he is officially the starting running back for the Carolina Panthers now, so about dang time because Miles Sanders sucks. So I'm glad he is finally out of there. Chuba Hubbard is definitely the better back in this backfield. And we did see with them both active last week, Hubbard still played nearly 70% of the snaps, 15 carries. Now an abysmal 28 yards on 1.8 yards per carry. So obviously wasn't a grand performance or anything, but the week prior to that, when Miles Sanders was out versus Miami after the bye week, week 6, 19 carries, 88 yards, got into the end zone. Didn't see much of the passing game, but if we can get 15+ touches out of Chuba Hubbard here in a very good matchup versus the Indianapolis Colts, who are currently allowing the 6th most points in the position at 25.7, nearly 100 rushing yards and 1.4 rushing touchdowns. And while Chuba Hubbard, even though he's a starting running back, is not going to get 100% of the touches, as long as we get 15+ touches here in a prominent role in a really good matchup, I will take it. As for wide receivers, this guy, we drafted him very high, but obviously circumstances have changed the quarterback position for him than what we expected heading into the season. But it's Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. And while he's still a name you're probably starting, I love this spot this week, so he's going to be my start of the week at the wide receiver position. This game's going to be in primetime on Monday Night Football. Hopefully Zach Wilson shows out for us, but he is still garnering a ton of attention in this offense and still producing to a decent degree. We are under 70 yards per game and 5.5 catches, but still seeing nearly 9.5 targets per game, 32.5% target share. Also a massive 48% market share of the team's air yards here, but I'm mainly enticed by this matchup versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Their defense has been horrendous versus the pass so far this year, currently ranking 30th versus the position, allowing nearly 200 receiving yards per game, specifically to the wide receiver position. So while Zach Wilson, obviously the only potential threat to Garrett Wilson in this game, he's actually had 2 pretty decent weeks in a row. 20 versus the New York Giants, where he had 13 targets, 7 catches for 100 yards. He also had a rushing attempt as well, not something we should really expect too often. But then 17 points versus Philly, which was another good matchup. 12 targets, 8 catches, 90 yards, and once again, not into the end zone. Not as many scoring opportunities as we probably would have had with Aaron Rodgers, but he's still making do. And next up, another receiver with a big name that we drafted high, but once again, just not really seeing the production that we would have expected. And a lot of that can be attested to quarterback play, poor quarterback play at that. But I'm pretty high on the Saints offense this week at home, especially versus the Chicago Bears. And Chris Olave is someone that I am still keeping in my lineups. I have seen people saying, I'm done with Olave. He gets all the targets in the world. They don't end up amounting to anything, which, yeah, that is true. We've seen some pretty poor games from Chris Olave. We've seen a couple of decent ones, but he has definitely been very hit or miss. But I do think this has the potential to be one of those hit games for Chris Olave. He's seeing 9.5 targets per game, but under 70 receiving yards, 5.5 catches, a 27% target share, and also 1,079 air yards. That is only behind guys like A.J. Brown, right up there with Tyreek Hill as well. 40% market share of the team's air yards, 70% weight opportunity share. And the Bears are a below average team versus receivers this season. But at some point, this duo with Derek Carr and Chris Olave is going to hit at some point. The chemistry obviously isn't there right now, but if we're going to have opportunity, we can get into the end zone. He's barely scoring whatsoever this year, 0.13 touchdowns per game, which if you're doing the math, that is only one on the season, and we are on to week 9. So it's not what we expected out of Chris Olave. And there is mouths to feed in this offense. You have Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, Shaheed, who's been a nice deep threat in this offense. I think he's actually fine as a deep league play. And Michael Thomas as well. But Chris Olave is still the alpha dog here. He's getting the opportunity. And when you get a ton of opportunity at some point, it's going to turn into success. So hopefully that's this week. And now for tight ends, my start of the week. It's a pretty easy one for me personally. Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. Still no Dawson Knox in this offense. So he is the bona fide tight end 1 here. Everybody else is hurt. And this is the best matchup you can ask for as of right now. Now, I hate using matchups too much for tight ends because they can be a bit noisy depending on the tight ends they have played so far this year. But the Bengals are dead last. They're allowing 16.1 points per game in the tight end position, which is the most. 65 receiving yards and over half a receiving touchdown. And with Knox out, we have seen Kincaid's role kind of explode a little bit. Played nearly 85% of the snaps last week versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 7 targets, 5 catches, got into the end zone as well. We also saw a season high in route participation for Dalton Kincaid at 85.7%, 37 routes, which is the second most he's had this year, only behind week 1, New York, but percentage-wise, it just wasn't as high. But yeah, it looks like Kincaid, the first-round pick in this offense, is finally getting the chance to be the clear-cut number 1 at the tight end position in this offense, and we know the upside is extremely high. You have Josh Allen throwing in the football. This is one of the absolute best games of the week and the best matchup you can ask for as a tight end, so fire up Dalton Kincaid. I actually traded for him in one of my leagues because I had Darren Waller go down. Paid a bit of a hefty price tag on it, but I feel pretty confident in it. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you have any start-sit decisions or anything about fantasy football, leave them down in the comment section below. I'd love to answer them. But I wish you the best of luck this week, and I'll see you all next time.